Comedy. Easily one of the most commonly made, however most difficult to understand type of movie. I swear, literally everyone on the planet is making comedies all of the time. However, a true comedy is nearly impossible to accurately make. It's actually kind of insane when you think of just how many comedic things come out all of the time, and how many of them miss the mark. Okay, I'm sorry, but if you think every single Amy Schumer movie is a work of art and is the peak of comedy, well, I mean, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. And I kind of think that you shouldn't be on the planet anymore. But anyways, so what is it that makes so many of these comedies just miss the mark? What is the difference between a Monty Python and a bad Adam Sandler's movie, What makes the difference between what makes the difference between an Edgar Wright movie and an Adam Sandler movie? Yeah, that's a better one. Okay, anyways, all right. So, what makes the difference? Well, that's what we're going to dive in today. In comedy, the importance of the story. So, there is one fundamental thing that the majority of these films that keep on coming out that are just about, shameless cash grab comedies, even if they're trying hard to not be, like one made by an actor who's actually trying to, take a shot at directing, is their big problem is that they forget one crucial element of every good comedy, and that's the story. And I know that sounds very simple and silly, but when you go down to the very basics of any story, the plot, the thing that moves each moment to moment is the most important part of it. And that's natural. That's understandable. That's obvious, almost. But the problem with these comedies is that they will always sacrifice the story for the joke. That is the biggest problem that all of these movies are having. All right, to show an example of using the story correctly in a comedy, I want to take a movie I just saw a while ago called Hot Fuzz, directed by Edgar Wright. This movie is incredibly interesting because not only is it a comedy, but it's also a satire of police force cliches, right? And on top of that, even though it is a satire, something that you're supposedly supposed to parody or joke about, there are several, if not the majority of this movie, has very legitimate moments of a police story. And that's the point. How can it be a satire if it doesn't, to a T, follow the plot of one of these type of movies, right? See, the problem with all these comedies is that they will always forget the story they're trying to tell and forget to give it weight just so that they can be funny, right? In Hot Fuzz, spoilers alert, of course, there's never a moment where you feel like, the stakes aren't that high. Even though it's hilarious and funny, there's still a lot of intensity, and the intensity is hilarious, but it's still there. There's still intrigue, because it still maintains to be a legitimate story. It still maintains to be a cop drama / mystery. And another example I'm going to bring up for this is one of my favorite movies to ever be made, is The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride does this exquisitely, because The Princess Bride is not portrayed as a satire in composition. It's more in the director's comments and in the advertising of this. It's quite poetic, actually. If you haven't seen the advertisements for Princess Bride, I don't blame you because the movie is quite old. But in a sense, it acknowledges its own story simplicity by saying, hey, this is the story that we're telling. this is what happens. There's action, there's adventure, there's romance, and there's a lot of cliches. But amidst all that, we're going to find a way to make this slightly a satire so that we can get you to laugh, but we're never going to forget the fact of the story, and we're never going to not keep it consistent. See, that's the problem with all these, is that all these movies are trying to be these funny versions of actual movies, but then they forget to actually be that movie. And it's kind of sad, actually. And again, if you don't understand what I'm saying here, let me try and make it a little more simple to understand, okay? Take a movie like an Adam Sandler movie, okay? Where it's trying to be... Here, let me rewind. Take a movie, a comedy movie. You've probably have seen a movie like this, where a group of people go on an adventure, okay? Where intense things happen, and there are one or two characters that are over the top, intense, and engaged in the story, but they're not main characters. They are outside characters. They are characters that the main characters encounter. And amidst all the intense things happening and the serious people who are interacting with the main characters are giving ad-lib, improvisation, and funny remarks throughout the whole thing, and are not actually taking the stakes seriously, and are just trying to spew off any funny quote that they can throw at you. That's so many movies that come out every single year. But that's not entertaining. And that's not how you make a masterful comedy. See, in Princess Bride, there's a large amount of things in Princess Bride and in Hot Fuzz that are supposed to be taken relatively seriously, which makes the funny moments better. And it makes the whole concept of a satire more concrete. I mean, would you really want to just watch a movie that's ad-libbed and lazy and kind of just everything goes everywhere, and you never actually go on an adventure that's engaging? No. Because then you miss out on a very fundamentally important part of comedies. Is that comedies aren't supposed to just make you laugh. They're supposed to impact you. So a big part about comedies is that they are supposed to give you in a whole amount of different feelings. Because that's the point. Because why would anyone want to constantly be in a laughy mood all the time? Sure, that is fine for stand-up bits, because in stand-up bits, you're there expecting, I want to laugh. But in a movie, you don't want that. Imagine just watching only jokes for 2 hours in a movie. Sure, that's going to be fun. Sure, that's enjoyable. But when push comes to shove, you didn't gain anything out of it. That movie doesn't stay with you. Maybe the jokes stay with you. But there's no mastery. There's nothing that really keeps your attention and stays in your mind for a little bit. After I watch an Edgar Wright movie, I don't stop thinking about it. I laugh all the time, but I also think about how interesting everything is. And honestly, that is how comedies become iconic. It is the middle ground between the jokes that make the jokes last forever. Because if they're just jokes, people will laugh until they're not funny anymore. So, if you want to make a good, solid comedy, make sure that you have a consistent story. And a good way to do that, a good way to make sure to have a good, consistent story is, I'm sorry, but try not an improv. Try not to improvise. It will help. I know that's tough for a lot of people to hear, but I mean, a clear-cut script is how you maintain a consistent story, which can maintain an iconic movie. And that's going to be all. If you like this video, subscribe. I know I said I was going to make another Ratatouille movie. I know I said I was going to make another Ratatouille video, and I will. this came to mind, and I really wanted to talk about this, so I decided to. All right, that's about it. So goodbye, have a nice day, and see you later.